Settle in and listen closely. Today, we aren't just rehashing a myth you might have skimmed in high school. We are diving into the absolute darkest waters of human endurance. Consider me your modern bard for this explainer, and we're going to navigate the profound psychological weight of the longest, most brutal commute in literary history, the Odyssey. Because honestly, this isn't just a story about glorious monsters and heroic battles. It's really about the agonizing, devastating cost of simply trying to get back home.
Right off the bat, we've got to confront this completely insane geographic paradox. Think about it. The distance from the ruins of Troy to the island of Ithaca is only about 560 miles across the sea. In a decent Bronze Age sailing ship, that's a 2-week journey, maybe 3 if the weather is just terrible. So how on earth does a 2-week trip take 10 years? This staggering delay sets up the massive scale of our epic. Geography wasn't the real barrier here. The gods and the terrifying flaws of men were.
And while our king is lost at sea, you have to look at the situation back on Ithaca. 108. That is the number of aggressive, hungry suitors who have literally moved into Odysseus's palace. They're just sitting there waiting for his wife, Penelope, to declare him dead and choose a new husband. That's 108 ambitious nobles devouring the estate of one missing king. The stakes back home are just utterly dire.
Part 1. A kingdom without a king.
So, without an orderly system of succession, Ithaca is bleeding out. Now, Queen Penelope manages to stall these 108 men for 3 whole years with sheer quiet brilliance. She promises to pick a suitor as soon as she finishes weaving a burial shroud. But, every single night, she secretly unravels the day's work. It's genius. But she can't just boot them out of the house. Why? Because of Xenia. That's the sacred Greek law of guest friendship. These suitors brilliantly and ruthlessly weaponized this beautiful, sacred custom. By acting as permanent guests, they were legally, smilingly robbing the kingdom blind, feast by feast.
The crucial point to grasp here is the agonizing weight of time. 10 years consumed by the blood and dust of Troy, followed by perilous, supernatural wanderings. By the time year 20 rolls around, Telemachus, the son Odysseus left as an infant, is a fully grown man who has never even seen his father's face, living in a home totally occupied by his enemies. Imagine the psychological toll of that waiting. An entire lifetime slipping by while the throne just sits empty.
Part 2. The Fall of Troy. The real catalyst for this unimaginable absence was a 10-year siege that ended in a massive, yet ultimately hollow victory. We all know Odysseus' masterstroke, right? The wooden horse. An unparalleled deception. But what actually happens when the Greeks pour out of that horse in the dead of night? Well, it wasn't just a battle. It was a sacrilegious slaughter. Sanctuaries were completely violated. Altars were soaked in blood. The Greeks won the war, for sure. But in their pent-up, merciless rage, they broke the sacred limits of their religion, entirely losing the favor of the gods in the process.
Part 3. Monsters, Gods, and Men. Just look at the very root of this feeling, nostalgia. Nostos meaning homecoming, and algos meaning pain, literally the ache for return. Early on, the crew encounters the Lotus Eaters, who offer this sweet fruit that simply makes you stop wanting to go home. It's a drug-induced cure to nostalgia, but in the logic of this epic, it's actually a horrifying form of psychological death. Because if you lose the ache for home, you lose your reason to exist. Odysseus literally has to drag his weeping men away by force. And then, the terror becomes deeply, deeply physical. Trapped in the cave of the cannibal Cyclops Polyphimas, we get to see Odysseus' elegant and brutal logic at work. It is a masterclass in tactical survival. He gets the giant incredibly drunk on unmixed wine. Aggressive bartending at its finest, honestly. He claims his name is Nobody, so when the giant screams for help, he yells, "Nobody is killing me." They blind him and then escape by clinging to the undersides of the giant's own rams. It's a perfect, blood-soaked escape. But that brilliant escape unravels in a single instant. As they sail away, Odysseus stands up and shouts his real name and address back at the bleeding giant. Why would he do that? Because a Bronze Age hero lived for glory. An anonymous victory was practically worthless to him. This is his fatal flaw, hubris. By screaming his exact identity, he hands Polyphemus, who just so happens to be the son of Poseidon, the exact legal instrument needed to curse the rest of the journey.
Part 4. Journey to the Dead. So this curse stalls them with the witch goddess Circe for a whole year. And before he leaves her, she gives him an impossible requirement and basically a roadmap of absolute terror.
he must sail to the underworld and navigate past some seriously lethal threats. I really want you to feel the immense dread of what is waiting for him in the waters ahead. The sirens, who sing a lethal song of ultimate knowledge. Scylla, a six-headed monster who simply cannot be fought. Charybdis, a whirlpool that swallows the sea whole, and the cattle of the sun god which absolutely must not be touched. The sheer volume of unavoidable threats is just suffocating.
Down in the underworld, Odysseus confronts the heavy truth of his era. He meets the ghost of Achilles, the greatest warrior of Troy, who delivers a truly devastating revelation. Achilles completely strips away that Bronze Age illusion of a glorious death. He basically tells Odysseus that all the fame in the world isn't worth a single breath of life. It completely subverts everything we think we know about Greek mythology and its total obsession with eternal glory. It is a chilling lesson on what that glory actually costs.
Part 5. The Price of Survival.
Carrying those heavy truths of the dead, Odysseus returns to the harrowing mechanics of pure survival. Approaching the strait, he faces a cold, mathematical nightmare. This is the horrific burden of leadership. Steer toward the whirlpool Charybdis and risk losing the entire ship and every single person on it. Or hug the cliff of Scylla, knowing absolutely that the monster will lean down and eat exactly 6 of his men. To save the many, he deliberately sails towards Scylla. He listens to his 6 men screaming his name as they are devoured. A choice he says was the most pitiful sight his eyes ever saw.
The attrition rate here is just staggering. It's the ultimate cost of appetites and poor choices. I mean, look at the numbers. He departed Troy with roughly 600 men. After the cannibal Laestrygonian smashed his fleet, only 45 survived. And finally, pinned by a storm and starving, his remaining crew commits a fatal mutiny, slaughtering those sacred cattle of the sun. Zeus destroys the ship in response. 600 men reduced to exactly 1.
Washing ashore on the island of Ogygia, Odysseus is taken in by the nymph Calypso, who keeps him there for 7 years. When the gods finally order her to release him, she delivers this incredibly potent feminist critique. She calls out the blatant Olympian double standard, where male gods take whoever they please, but a powerful goddess is expressly forbidden from loving a mortal man. Her rage, as ancient as it is piercingly real. But the crucial point here is the choice Odysseus makes to leave her. Calypso literally offers him ageless immortality and a perfect island paradise. No pain, no death. But Odysseus rejects eternal perfection. He chooses the painful, beautiful, messy reality of returning to an aging, mortal wife and a very difficult life. He connects right back to that core theme, nostalgia. It wasn't just a place he missed, it was his mortal reality. This choice completely defines the profound humanity of the entire epic. He just wants his own life back.
Part 6. The Anonymous Return Home.
The sea eventually strips Odysseus of absolutely everything. His treasure, his clothes, his crew. Washing ashore on Ithaca 20 years later, he is a king of nothing. Knowing those 108 suitors would murder him instantly, he takes Athena's advice. Disguised as a filthy, anonymous beggar, he enters his own hall. Think about this contrast for a second. The man who once shouted his name across the sea to a giant out of sheer pride has now learned ultimate patience. He endures horrific abuse, insults, and violence in his own home, clamping down his rage in silence, just waiting for the perfect moment to execute his revenge.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer, and to a question that should really haunt you. After 20 years of blood, monsters, divine curses, and the loss of every single companion, after being completely stripped of his army, his fleet, and his youth, is the man who returns truly the same man who left? Or did the true king of Ithaca actually die somewhere out on that wine-dark sea? I'll leave you to think on that. Until next time, keep questioning the journey.